Welcome, and thank you for coming today. I will be talking about AWS Copilot. My name is Jeremias. I am from the architecture area of White Prom. So let's start talking about what online tech talks are. This is a space to share stuff with other team members. There we propose some ideas for you if you want to give one talk. So we are open if you have seen something interesting to share. So feel free to contact us through Slack or whatever feels more easy for you. So you are invited to give a talk to this space. Let's start talking about AWS Copilot and what is it. It's an open source command line interface that makes it easy for developers to build, release, and operate production-ready containerized applications on AWS App Runner, Amazon ECS, and AWS Fargate. So summing up is a CLI. And let's see some context related with Copilot. The idea of Copilot is to simplify containers in AWS. So if you start using containers on your own, you will have to learn lots of concepts that are AWS proprietary, and these are simplified concepts. So the first one will be the application. It's just a collection of services and environments. The environments that obviously it's an environment, not much to explain there, and it has its own version of all your services in your application running. A service will be your code, and Copilot gives you the supporting infrastructure needed to get it up and running on AWS. Jobs are same as services, but just that are triggered by an event, for example, for scheduled tasks or things that just start and finish. And pipelines will be deployment pipelines that allow you to deploy your service whenever you push to your Git repository. These are the basic concepts. So today I will show you just a demo application that I made for this presentation. And the interesting thing is, these are all the resources that my application will use. And these are all the resources you might have to understand if you are not using Copilot. So we will have an Amazon VPC with 2 public subnets and 2 private subnets. That's the recommendation from AWS. 2 root tables, 1 internet gateway, 1 internet gateway attachment, 2 security groups, 1 application load balancer, 1 HTTP listener, 1 HTTP listener rules, 1 target group, 1 service discovery namespace, 1 service discovery service, 1 elastic container service cluster, 1 ECS service, 1 task definition, 1 registry for the containers, 2 identity and access management roles, and 1 log group. And for the deployment pipeline, we will have 1 AWS code pipeline, 1 AWS code build project, 1 Amazon S3 bucket, 1 AWS KMS for customer master keys, and 1 IAM role. So if I wasn't using Copilot, I would have to learn and understand all these resources and know how to deploy them and configure them. So let's go directly to the demo. I've recorded the demo in order to don't break, but I had some problems in the demo anyway. So let's go through it. To start, I started with just 1 Docker file. That Docker file contains a simple web server with Nginx that runs this index.html file and exposes through a web server. So the first thing to initialize my application is running Copilot init and giving to my application a name. Then I will select which type of application I want to deploy. In this case, it will be a load balance service. I just give the service a name, and then let's see if I can. Oh. And then the Copilot CLI allows me to select 1 Docker file from my directory. This command just reads all Docker files that are in my directory, and it allows me to select one and assign it to my service. then it's supposed to be port 80, that's the default, and then it will start creating infrastructure to manage all my services. This takes some time, so let's accelerate it. Okay. Then you see it has created some infrastructure. It has some description about my service, and it gives me the ability to create a test environment from start. So I will say yes, and then it will start deploying my test environment. Let's go a little bit faster. Okay, then it starts creating some of the resources. Sorry. Okay, it starts creating some IAM roles and some of the stuff I need. And then it starts, because it's the first time I deploy my service, it will try to deploy the ECS cluster, the VPC with the subnets and all the configurations I told you in the other slide. This is just for the first deployment. Let's go a little bit faster, and it's creating it. And then I had an error because I was pointing to the Nginx image that it's in the public ECR of AWS. For some reason, I couldn't access it from my computer, so then I fixed it to the standard Docker Nginx, and then I run. Sorry, and then I run the. Let's see. The Copilot deploy. So it tries to deploy my application again. As you see, all the other resources were already created, so it just built my Docker container, and then it uploads it to my ECR. Let's see. Okay. So when it finishes, it updates all the resources that are related with this specific service. Go a little bit faster. Okay, and after it ends deploying all those services related with my service, it starts deploying my container inside my ECS cluster. So we will see here it's starting to run it. It shows one pending. And at some point, there it is. At some point, my task will be running. So the desired is 1, and that will end with the deployment part. So that command, the first command, the init command, created some of the resources we need. So we can see this in CloudFormation. First command just deployed some roles that Copilot needs for this application. And then when I deploy my first service, let's see if I can show you this. Okay. It deployed the ECR, KMS key, and this is in another step when I added the pipeline stuff. So when I deploy my application, it created the cluster, it created some stuff related with having internet in that specific container, and lots of stuff related with my VPC and all related network stuff. So when it deployed the actual service in my actual environment, here we see we have the API demo in the test environment that just deploys the actual Docker image in my container and all related container configurations that might be changed. Okay, so interesting part, this is split in separated CloudFormation templates, and it's very tidy. So one interesting thing about Copilot. So we can see our cluster. Here is our cluster that has our application running. It has created for us a service that contains a task. This is our task running. And if we want, we can access, let's see, our application here. It's exposed in a domain for us. All this just running all those two commands I have showed it to you. So let's go here. Okay. I will show you some interesting stuff about the Copilot CLI. So let's start with Copilot help. Here we can see all the commands that Copilot CLI gives to us. There are some related to the application, some to the environment, some to the services, jobs, and tasks, some others to the pipeline, and some others to deployment. So let's start with Copilot app list. Here we will see those applications in my account. Then we can see the list of my service in my application. Here is the service I have already deployed. And we can see, for example, a Copilot service show. It's defaulting to API demo because I only have one service. If not, it lets you choose your service. So we will see our service description here. So as we said, we have an application. This is the name of our service. This is the service type. This is how it's running right now. This is the URL where, as I showed you, it's running. And we have here all those variables for the environment on that service. So all these commands we have seen have created several configuration files that Copilot have created. So at first, we just created our API demo manifest that describes our service. Here, it says the name, the type of service. This HTTP setting allows to have the load balancer configured for you. There are several configurations you can add here. Here, it defines our image, the port that is exposed. We can add more information here to add like environment variables and all of that stuff. And here is the configuration for these specific containers, how many tasks we want to have, and more stuff. So another interesting part will be you can start assigning secrets. You can share secrets between containers, and it's all handled by AWS Copilot. Here you have specifics for an environment. So for example, this specific service needs a specific configuration in an environment, so you can set it up here also. And as you see, I have created just one test environment. Here is the test environment in the environments folder. So it just describes my environment. So we don't have any specifics for this environment, but we will have it here. So all the configuration for Copilot are stored in my repo, and I can change it and commit them whenever I want. So as now we have the application running in ECS with my task, with my Docker file running. And the next step I will show it to you will be related with the deployment pipeline. So I think I have it recorded. It's here. Okay. So after I created my application, after I have my container running, I run the pipeline creation separately. So let's see how it's done. I just run the Copilot pipeline init. It detected already where I am working, which is the branch. I just tell him the name. I just tell how I want it to be deployed. And in the text, it has just one stage of test. Once it's created, that creates just the assets for my pipeline configuration. And then I need to deploy that pipeline to the cloud. Just running Copilot pipeline deploy. There you see the files that has created. It creates two files, one build spec that describes how to build my application, and one manifest that describes the pipeline itself. Okay. Then I run the pipeline creation. It asks me to give permissions for my GitHub repository in order to detect changes in my code. So then I do the permission here, blah, blah, blah. And then it starts creating the pipeline. Okay. So what that command has done, it's created this pipeline in code pipeline AWS service. This pipeline will pull from our source that it's our GitHub repo whenever it detects a push. Then it will run the build. The build is where Copilot lets you put your own code for your building. And then it will deploy our test in our specific CloudFormation template. So for example, if I have several services, they will be deployed separately in different CloudFormation templates. So just to give an example, we will try to change something here. Okay. So what this should done, there we see. It detected the change, it started pulling the changes. And after that, it would start building our containers. And after it has built those containers and pushed to the ECR, it will start the deployment, just deploying the specific CloudFormation templates that are related with my services in that specific environment. So let that keep running. That is all the demo I wanted to show you to you. The idea is to show you how simple is running containers with Copilot. And the idea of this tool is to be centered in the developer, and that the developer do not have to manage lots of infrastructure resources. And at the same time, it gives you lots of configurations. I mean, you can do whatever you can do with Fargate. With Copilot, it has the same configurations. And here I written down some interesting stuff that came to our minds when we started using this tool. So you can import your already deployed VPC to a Copilot app. So you don't have to rely just on the VPC Copilot created. So if you have a working VPC, you can import it and use it. And you can say to Copilot to use specific IPs for your services. Related to storage, Copilot has a storage company, but this is restricted to S3 buckets, DynamoDB tables, and RDS Aurora serverless. So in our project, we needed to add a traditional RDS database. So how you can do that? You can add just the RDS database to the application, and you can share the secrets to access to that database just using tags. You can add tags to your resources that your application need to access, and Copilot will just have access for them. You can extend your application using CloudFormation templates. So if you need extra resources that are not included in Copilot's definitions, you can add just CloudFormation templates, and those resources will be deployed in every environment you have. You can run commands. You can run commands inside your containers using the svc exec command. So you can even get into your containers and start running bash if you need for some reason. You can enable X-ray tracing with a setting in your manifest file for your service. It even gives you an implemented SQS and SNS communication between your services. So with some definitions in your manifest, you can say, this service produces in this queue, and this service consumes from this queue, and it deploys the infrastructure you need for that. And it has also an interesting functionality called sidecars that allows you to run your services with some sidecars at the same time, like for tracing capabilities or whatever you need for those containers. Okay, let's see how this ended. Oh, okay. it has been built and it's deploying. So we can see, okay, we are seeing this. We have one task running with the old container. It's trying to activate the new container. And after it gets up and running, it will delete this container and will start using this container. Then there are the two running. We can test here. We're still pointing, okay, we are pointing to the new deployment. So it worked, the demo worked. Okay, so thank you all. Do you have any questions, comments, or suggestions related with this?
I have one question.
Yes.
Does AWS charge you for each of the run on the pipelines or just for the resources you use?
I'm not that in-depth knowledge of that. I know they charge you for the building process, but I think they don't charge you, for example, for this functionality and this functionality. They just charge you for the building time and resources. And I think they charge you on the number of runnings of the whole pipeline. I'm not that sure, but that's what I remember.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other question or suggestion?
I have one question, Jere.
Yes.
Let's say that you want to add an additional listener to your load balancer. So correct me if I'm wrong, you should go to the manifest file and make it there, right? If you do this manually in the Amazon UI, you will break everything. Am I right?
It depends because you know, if you change something in Terraform will reset the resources to the state they should be. But in the case of CloudFormation, it has some, it tolerates some changes. So it depends on what you update later. If you, for example, you add a listener, Copilot will not say anything, and CloudFormation will not say anything. You could detect drift changes later, but it will still be working. So it wouldn't stop you for deploying, and that's kind of the way they manage it. They try not to stop your deployments, but if you deploy the same resource, it will break everything you do manually. You know.
Cool.
It's more related with CloudFormation than with Copilot.
Yeah. Okay.
I have one more question related.
Yes.
For example, let's say you have a Route 53 or some DNS configuration. Is it possible to add it to Copilot, or is it best to add it directly on AWS?
Copilot has embedded. Let's see. Here we have some, for example, domain. For example, if you want to add a domain, you can do that inside Copilot if you had already created in Route 53 your domain stuff. So I may think the ideal way for doing that will be this, but you know, Copilot deploys all services or all standard services you can start playing and changing on your own. So it will be no problem if you want to point your domains manually to the load balancer. It won't break anything. But the correct way for doing this and be maintained with Copilot is this one.
Perfect. Cool, thanks.
Another interesting thing I may mention, let's see if it's here. Okay, service discovery. They deploy for you the service discovery service. This service discovery service allows for your containers to talk with fixed IPs, fixed domains that are internal to your VPC. So another thing you have to make manually, and they give it out of the box working for you.
Wow. And you can deploy also Lambdas, right?
Lambdas is not integrated with Copilot, but you could integrate them with CloudFormation templates. Let's see, they have it here. Okay. So if you have additional AWS resources, they give you the ability to deploy those I told you, S3 Bucket, DynamoDB, and Aurora Serverless. But if you want to add another resource, let's see, they allow you to include a template in your Copilot directory, and that template could be parameterized with standard parameters. If you need more parameters from your containers, you can put them here and relate them later. And you can decide here, like, okay, if I am in the test environment, I deploy these ones, and if I am in the production environment, I deploy other ones. So if you use CloudFormation, you can, and those will be deployed with the Copilot pipeline and all that stuff.
I have a question here.
Yes.
How you can scale Copilot with multiple services? It's like different like microservices. How easy is to do that? And also the environment variables, where do you change it? With Copilot, is stored into a parameter store on Amazon, or where are stored those secrets? And how are shared with the other developers?
Awesome. If I want to add another service, as you have seen, I just added one. Let's see if I should imagine I have another API, and I will use the same definition. If I want to add another service to my application, I just run Copilot service init. I define if I want to be inside App Runner, if I want to be behind a load balancer. If it will be just a backend service that it's inside my cluster and talks with other containers, or you can have a worker service that is gives you the ability to chain it with SQS and SNS. So
yeah, maybe a worker.
Sorry.
No, maybe, yeah, the worker maybe is like a good approach. You have the API, and then you have a web worker that do something.
Yes, I don't know. It may start asking questions here. Okay, I never run this command, so it will start. Okay, it's the idea of the worker is to connect with other containers, so you can trigger the worker through SNS or through SQS. So as you see, it says you don't have any SNS topics, but when I want to connect them, there are specific. Okay, here you have. You say these workers subscribe to this topic, and you say in the other containers, this container emits message to these topics, and that deploys you all the infrastructure you need, and it connects them automatically.
Yeah, that is a good, more like complex solution. So yeah, it's good. And the environment variables, how you can manage it and share.
You can define, I don't know, you can define here the specific environment variables for that container, and you can decide here which secrets of your environment this service will have. So you have like a list of secrets that are related with this Copilot application, and you can start sharing them between containers using this. And I think, okay, I may think there are specific secrets for each environment too. We can see that in the documentation, but okay, maybe we can read it later.
Well, you also have access to the code build, so maybe you can pull them.
Sorry?
You also have access to the code build, so maybe you can pull them from there, from the build spec, I mean.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to show you is how the build spec works. You see, this is a auto-generated build spec that what it does, it just pulls a Copilot version, the same Copilot version you used to create it. It installed it in the runner. Then it gives you the space of the build for you to run whatever you need. And at the end, it will just list your services, list your jobs, and start running the deployment. You see, it runs the SVC package that just builds your Docker containers and push it to the ECR. And then it leaves all the code in the infrastructure folder for the last step to deploy it. Okay, any other questions? Okay, guys.
Just a minor comment. This, I guess this, what it looks like to me is this is super useful for when you don't have a huge behemoth with a bunch of containers. This works for smaller projects, right? Something, get it up and running quickly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Good question. In the theory, it will be perfect for both cases. That's in theory. I have not used this CLI too much to know that, but it's supposed to tolerate big infrastructures. But as I say, I'm very new to this tool yet to answer correctly for that. So I think I don't have the answer yet.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. So I will give you some links if you want to research more about Copilot. They have really nice documentation here. They have examples, like for every specifics I have shown it to you. They have even a specific part of here with some guides. So I hope you find this interesting, and thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Very good presentation. Sure.
Thank you. Okay.
So you're
See ya.
going to use a project, right?
Sorry?
In a couple of months, we're going to know if the solution scale, because you're going to use into the project into a production environment. So
yes, maybe to give context, we were using Terraform for all these resources, and it was a bit messy for us. So we discovered this tool that is simpler for the developers. So we will start deploying containers today to try if it suits perfectly our problem.
Sorry, I have one question. Yes. My name is Marcos. Since you mentioned that you stopped using Terraform and you started using this, how are you keeping track of your infrastructure if you're no longer using Terraform?
Nice question. What we are thinking in doing, we are not sure yet, and we want to talk with you, DevOps team, to ask you about. We may have the infrastructure separated in Copilot stuff and container stuff, and all the other stuff will be managed by Terraform. But we are still thinking how we want it to be. But the idea is for these containers and all containers related stuff to be managed by Copilot.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, guys. If there are no any other questions, we can finish. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, Ede.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you guys.